Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Women in Leadership Talk podcast. Super excited to have you with us today. And we have a very exciting guest to share with you. Her name is Heather Altepeter. Heather, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Hi. Hello, everyone. Nice to be here.
Awesome. Well, we're glad to have you. She's going to educate us on fintech today and some of the cutting edge things that she's doing in this industry to, I think, disrupt the financial services industry. And I want to thank our audience for being here. I know you have a choice as to what podcast you listen to, and we're super grateful to have you tuning in each week to the Women in Leadership Talk. So let's jump in. Let me give you a little feedback on Heather and her background before we get into questions. So Heather is the CEO and owner and founder of National Merchants Association, which is an innovative fintech company, pro-business advocate, and payments acquirer transforming the financial industries way they service the industry. Heather first delved into the finance industry by selling insurance while she was pregnant and on bed rest with her first daughter. Once her daughter was born, she stayed at home during the day and worked on a retail job at night. This is when she dove headfirst into learning everything she could about the credit card and payment processing industries, which ultimately has led to the inception of National Merchants Association. Today, NMA has achieved remarkable success, securing a spot on the Inc. 5000 list of fastest growing companies for 3 consecutive years. That's helping them achieve a near 1 billion evaluation and securing partnerships that afford exclusive access to innovative payment solutions. She's known as the go-to strategist for tackling challenging industry developments, and Heather has become a progressive leader and voice of significance in the payments industry, personally pioneering a new era in bank card by demonstrating that high risk done right is both possible and attainable. Sounds like you've been busy, Heather.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so we're excited to have you, on today and maybe just share with us a little bit of your background, even before, the insurance company. What drove you for this, experience in fintech and the banking industry?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for that introduction. I sometimes forget what 20 years of experience looks like until you hear it back, right? So actually, I formed, I formed National Merchants Association in 2004. And I actually had been a buyer at Radio Shack at the time, and I got involved with some of the new credit card and new underbanked banking methods that were being delivered. And Radio Shack, being that it had 7,200 locations, had, it was one of the first places that retailers or new technologies and things like that would come to, because we had to put 2 units on every peg in 7,200 stores. So I very quickly became interested in the residual income associated with prepaid credit cards. And so that is actually what led me directly into the merchant services world. Yes, I'd had the insurance background, and yes, I'd done some other things, but there was nothing like having the actual benefits of the prepaid credit cards that I could physically see and tie that revenue back to the company. So upon starting the company, I really, at the time, there was very little regulation. It was a time when you couldn't walk into a local Taco Bell or fast food and pay with your credit card. It just didn't exist at that time. It was becoming an opportunity, but by and large, most merchants were not yet accepting credit cards. It wasn't easy. It was expensive. And like I said, there was very little regulation, let alone education.
Mm-hmm.
So I went out and as a 1099 agent for several of the top processors that are still in business today, I took the things I liked and the things I didn't like, and I created what I have founded as a first and foremost merchant advocacy group. So our goal at National Merchants Association is really to advocate for our merchants. And that includes everything from education to services to thinking ahead and pioneering and paving new, blazing new trails, if you will, when it comes to certain things, also now known as fintech. So 20 years ago, almost.
Wow. So being a pioneer in this type of industry is you're constantly innovating, which is great. And it moves so fast. So I can't even imagine how you even keep up with all the moving parts that are going on. So maybe let's talk a little bit about fintech and just give our audience, because they may not be a merchant, they may not understand. They're definitely a consumer, and so they're using your product, but maybe talk a little bit about fintech and why this is having such an impact on the financial industry.
Sure. Yeah. So it is a tricky word. People don't really understand it, right? And it's very simple. It's just fintech is financial technology. And that really just refers to the use of technology to provide financial services. I mean, this could include everything from mobile banking, peer-to-peer lending, online payment apps, investment apps, things that you're probably already using in your day-to-day life. Fintech it's had a significant impact on the financial services industry because it's introducing new ways of delivering financial services that are faster, more convenient, and often more cost-effective than traditional banking methods.
Which is great. I mean, because that all translates to the end user, right?
Right.
Which is hugely important. So what are some of those challenges because artificial intelligence has become such a force in all industries now, but in particular, for you, what are some of the challenges that you think AI will create?
Well, I mean, AI is only as good as the data that you put into it. And I'll give you an example. One time, one of the very first times I was ever on stage doing a presentation at an event, and gosh, this was probably 15 to 17 years ago. And it was really before like blogs or, things existed. I don't know. You'll have to check me on the date on blogs, but it was during a time when, people were really just starting to personally brand and kind of get their name out there. And I was on stage with a gentleman who, he was so convicted in what he was saying that I found myself thinking, like, am I wrong? But what he was saying was absolutely incorrect. And it was on a very important payments subject. And I kept, I would try to correct, but politely, but also I realized that he really thought that what he was saying was right. And I really thought that what I was saying was right. And I didn't want to get into an argument in front of people. So I, after the host or the moderator had asked a couple more questions, I realized, like, I just don't want to be associated with this spreading of misinformation. So I politely excused myself from the stage and I said, maybe it's me, maybe I'm in over my head. But I don't think that I know what this gentleman knows. And there was another gal on the stage too. And she was just like, she didn't know which way to go. Right. But the point is that AI is only as good as the data you put into it. Sure. And this gentleman had done his research on the internet, using everything that was available to him at that time. The challenge was that the topic that we were discussing was not something that the card brands put out there on the internet, because it was really part of our rules and regulations that, as payment processing providers, that we had to abide by. So it's not something that, from a risk perspective, it wasn't something that was just out there. And so the point is that he was only able to know what he knew from what he was able to research from what was available to him.
Sure.
And so if you think about AI, who is really just, using data, particularly like this new Chat GPT, right? It's just pulling data from internet resources. And how many times, I don't know if you have any children, but how many times do I have to tell my kids, you can't trust everything on the internet, right?
Exactly. Yes.
But if this stuff is just pulling in, bad data, or bad data is probably not the right word for it, but if it's bringing in biased data,
yes,
you're going to get a biased response.
Yeah.
And there's a ton of other things, but think about this. From a privacy and security perspective, with that in mind, as AI systems become more ubiquitous, there are definitely concerns about how personal data is collected, stored, and used, even to the point where malicious actors may use AI to launch cyber attacks and things like that.
Of course.
And our social media pages and all of those things are the ways that, the bad actors are going to be able to get to us.
Yeah.
But there's a couple other things. I really say that there's three big challenges with AI, and we've talked about bias just now. There's also lack of transparency. We just launched this new underwriting tool. And it's really difficult to understand how the system arrived at a particular decision or recommendation. And that lack of transparency has made it really difficult to trust the system. So now we're going back in there and we're like, okay, how can we adjust this algorithm to give us the response that we actually were looking for when we fed it that data? Now it's our data. I mean, it's, I know the data is accurate, but the response I'm getting from it is not as trustworthy because of it's the way that it comes up with the response, or the decision is not transparent. And then the third, and probably the most important, is our over-reliance on AI. I see this as being a huge problem very quickly in the future. But I mean, there's a huge risk of over-reliance on AI systems, particularly when it comes to like critical decisions on medical diagnoses or financial investment. And this can lead to a lack of human oversight and accountability. So, if you are going to incorporate AI, you don't want to get rid of the human oversight and the human accountability.
Oh, I love that you said that. Thank you. Thank you, Heather, because that's one of the risks that I see is, oftentimes we will dismiss that human element, and that is such a miss in so many ways. Wow. You know what? Thank you for sharing that example that you gave about, the input of the data, because for our audience, we're predominantly a female based audience. And what you just shared there, even about the courage to stand up and walk off that stage, like we could spend a whole episode just talking about that, because that takes a lot of tenacity. It takes a lot of courage to just get up and leave and say, you know what? No, I can't be part of this. And I think that's a very powerful message on so many levels. For women to recognize, when BS is being said, like, you don't have to go along with it. You have a choice. So I love that you did that. And I also love how you, looked at all the three different elements of how AI, what challenges that it can pose, because we think AI is going to be the fix of all. And there is a ripple effect, especially when you take that human element out.
Yeah, and it's going to continue, it's going to continue to require ongoing research, regulation, and public awareness before it really becomes more integrated into our daily lives. But it's coming.
It is coming. And that was one of the reasons I thought it'd be really important for you to even be on the podcast, is to share some of those things and understand how that there can be the good element, which there's a lot of good. And, and let's just talk about that a little bit. So it's opening up this world of financial services. And so I know one of the things your company did is you created a robot called Lola, right? So what was the inspiration to create her, and tell us about what she can do, what she offers?
Yeah. So actually Lola is not only the name of my grandmother, but also my French bulldog.
Oh, love it.
So it's a name that will forever live in infamy, right? And it was so funny because we just trademarked Lola POS, and we sent it off to the family, and I'm like, okay, now we own it. It's ours forever. Nice. But the inspiration behind Lola is, okay, so first of all, Lola has many facets. It is really just a product that NMA has created, but it's a product that really lends to making your business operate more smoothly without removing that human element. And that's why it was really critically important for me to keep Lola in, as like to remind ourselves that it is, named after a human, and that we can never ignore the human element of anything that we're doing. But the first product is a kiosk. And you've probably, gosh, I just came through the airport yesterday morning, and every other station now is starting to have, self-service kiosks. Many reasons that we could get into. That's a whole nother podcast, right? Talking about labor shortages and other challenges. But Lola is a kiosk, and then there's a POS system. And it was at a big bank or a big client presentation the other day, and they represent 1,700 restaurants. And, they said, well, it's really challenging to get the operators to switch their POS systems. I said, look, if I have this my way, we'll get rid of their POS systems. They don't need them. That's old technology. POS systems are a thing of the past. What we're really operating with now, or should be, or will be in the very near future, are the kiosk systems, allowing the consumer to actually input their order. do whatever it is they're doing. It's not just related to restaurants. I've got retail kiosks and everything too. It's just our restaurants are sort of our first rollout here. But we've got the POS systems because there's traditional, requirements in that. But some of the coolest things that Lola brings are droids, actual robots that are accepting payments, making drinks. Now, this is through a robotics partner, that creates the actual robots that are making the drinks and so forth. But it's really opening the way for completely unmanned restaurants or services. And I don't know if you've seen, if you follow our social media, but you can see Lola in action roaming around our office. She comes around every day at about 2:00 to me and brings healthy snacks on trays. So
I did see that.
Okay, good.
That's why I wanted to talk about her, because I think that, there's some interesting things that she can bring. And I know one of the things I read is that, you're looking at her as, having an impact on merchants of a variety of sizes, right? So you don't have to just be a small, large, medium, small, there's that impact, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. With the droid itself, I'm currently working with our marketing team on a go-to-market campaign, if you will, for professional services. Why can't Lola be at the doctor's office? Yeah. Lola also operates as sort of a butler. She'll be like, "Oh, follow me and I'll take you too." But I'm thinking waiting rooms, like this is perfect because, first and foremost, I think it's somewhat of a violation of HIPAA and other privacy, things when you're sitting in a waiting room and they come out, "Well, Heather Altepeter," and you're like, I really didn't want everyone in here to know my name. Mm-hmm. But, if the droid, if you had, a geofence or some sort of target on your phone that you've used to check into your doctor, if the droid came to you, "Will you follow me?" and took you on in, it just helps improve privacy and some other concerns, that you might have at a doctor's office. But not only could the droid take you in, but it can accept your payment, it can collect your insurance information without ever having to have, I don't want to say the human interaction, but without having to, perhaps have an uncomfortable conversation about your weight or,
yeah, that's a good one. It's true. Yes.
Your age or what have you, because it's sort of always a little bit of a challenge when you get in there.
Of course. And so I'm just curious, like, how does that, I'm just, as you were saying that, I was thinking about my mom, right? Like, she's 80 years old, she's struggling now to interact with technology. Like, we bought her multiple computers. She's got an iPhone, but she struggles to do a lot does definitely not do online banking. How do you address that audience? Is that where the human element comes in?
I think so, but also voice activation. Everything that we're doing, we're really including voice activation as a major component, because remember, I said Radio Shack. Yeah. That's where it kind of got started 30 years ago is when I was working there. But, we largely had, and I was challenged with taking an older demographic and really bringing them into, that was when Radio Shack first started selling wireless phones. Mm-hmm. And, I was just a sales agent at the time on the floor, but we would have an older demographic come in with just their phone and just hand it to me like, please help.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you operate this? So as I started developing and being, I'm a serial entrepreneur, by the way, but as I started developing different ideas or bringing things into fruition, I've always had the older demographic in mind because, and again, Lola, right? My grandmother, same kind of thing, but to always make it voice activated so that they could easily communicate with it and also have it pick up on maybe some of the words that they might use or the way that they might call things. A very funny commercial on television. I wish I could tell you who it was, but it reminds me of that because I think it was an Alexa commercial where she was trying to tell, like a young girl was trying to tell her older father or grandfather how to use it or something like that. And that's really the way that we're going to I hate to use the word force, but force consumer adoption is to show. Apple did such a great job of this when they introduced the phone, on TV. They would show us how to use it. And I think that that's how we're going to have to convince consumer adoption on some of these new robots and new technologies. Just show people how to use it, tell people how to use it, and let them interact with it.
Yeah.
I think she'll be fine with the droid.
Awesome. Okay. Good to know. Good to know. I wanted to take a minute and just talk about the robots solving this labor shortage. And I know you said maybe that's another podcast, but let's just maybe talk about like what you see briefly, like what you see that solve that could happen with robots.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, a robot is never going to call in sick. It doesn't need a smoke break. It doesn't.
That's very true.
It's not going to be surfing its social media. It's not going to be texting during its shift and answering personal phone calls. It's going to have a major impact, I think, on the workforce and the economy. And if you think about droids, I mean, they can do all kinds of things. They can go into places that humans might not typically want to be doing, like a dangerous, maybe in a hazmat, particular situation. What if that same droid was able to take the blood samples over to the lab, or, just other things that I know nothing about that side of the world, by the way, so I don't even know if that made any sense, but I'm just thinking that the robots can do a lot of things that, maybe might be a little more hazardous to humans. Okay. They can do monotonous things, right? Like we've got one, our robotics partner has one for our restaurant clientele that, flips the fries or takes the fry basket out, puts it over. So again, it comes into safety. It's a monotonous thing, but also a safety thing with the fry cook. But when we talk about, replacing labor or, really addressing the labor shortage, if you've got kiosks there, you never have to worry about long lines or people waiting or messing up the order. It's the consumer that really gets to take control of that order. And it's really their responsibility to make sure that they're putting in, everything properly. It's also very sort of almost gamified in that if you've got a kiosk versus a person, most people are going to walk up to the kiosk because it's engaging, it's vibrant, it's got video, ads running on it, and it's new, and they want to touch it, they want to feel it, and it's very inviting, to have them touch it. Okay. But we want to be careful when we talk about, labor affecting the labor shortage, because we certainly want to be able to take advantage of the labor shortage crisis and be able to employ these kiosks and droids for that. But we also, want to be cognizant that AI has the potential to automate many jobs that are currently performed by humans that could lead to significant job displacement.
That was my next question.
I know some states are already taking that into consideration and providing, required, or I think it's being presented right now where they're going to require certain levels of unemployment, extended periods for people who have been replaced by robots or what have you. Could have a major impact on the workforce, but and potentially even on the economy. Yeah. But if you think about it, I mean, people aren't. These are the robots and the kiosks can do jobs that humans may or may not. I mean, we're evolving as a species. We may or may not want to continue to do those jobs, and really, we as humans should be placed in more skilled and expert type of positions versus. Sure. Why do I need a human? Right. Why do I need a human standing there operating the fryer if my robot can do it? Let me use those humans to go do more skilled labor or more skilled, jobs within the restaurant.
Yeah. So. I mean, where I would go with that in my head, because I grew up in that industry years ago, is, then you have more time to actually service your clients and have, a much better experience from that regard. But I sit on the fence on that one, Heather, because I go, okay, I think about young people, right? That's where they go to get experience because they don't get out of school. And high school, they certainly don't have a lot of experience, but they get it even out of, their summers between university. Usually it's restaurant or it's retail to help them gain some kind of experience to move them into, what they're going to do next. But so there's a lot that we need to really look at, I think. So what do you think would be the most important thing for our audience to walk away with today regarding AI and fintech?
Well, there's a couple of things that, some advantages that we really do need to consider. I mean, some of the benefits of fintech is that it's absolutely helped to democratize the access to financial services. If you think about in the past, traditional banks often required like certain levels of income or certain credit worthiness before they were able to provide loans or investment accounts and so forth. But there are fintech platforms out there now that are available to a wider range of people, including those with lower incomes or less established credit histories or younger people. And that benefit is that that fintech has improved the speed and convenience of those financial transactions. And once again, that may be uncomfortable human interaction when it comes to like applying for a loan or getting a new credit card or what have you. Mobile banking apps, for example, they allow you to check your balances and transfer funds and pay bills and everything from your phone without ever having to go into a branch. And if you think about like on online investment platforms, you can make it easier to just manage your own investments without ever having to go through a financial advisor or a broker. But I think that the number one thing that I really would want everyone to really walk away from is that the most important thing in understanding AI and fintech is that while AI is a powerful tool and can be used to improve these financial services, it definitely is not a replacement for human expertise or judgment. And we have to use it responsibly with a very clear understanding of its potential risks and limitations.
Awesome. Thank you. Wow, that was great.
Sure.
So much information and so much change that's happening in our world with regard to, AI, robots, chat GPT, and I loved what you shared about, your output is only as good as your input. And so really questioning and making sure that you're not just taking it at face value. That was the big thing I heard from your comments today. So thank you for that. And, I wanted to thank you for taking time to share, some of the work that the National Merchants Association is doing. You're clearly bringing some, highly innovative ways to look at, how we bring robots in, how we maintain that human interaction. I think that's super, super important. Yeah. So thank you for joining us today, Heather. This has been terrific.
Absolutely. Appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Yeah. I'm glad to have you. And I want to thank our audience. I hope that, you're going to walk away in really understanding more about AI, fintech, even chat GPT. That's such a, that's in the media like crazy right now. And so if you have questions for Heather, I'm sure that Heather, like if you're on Instagram or if people have comments, like they can certainly reach out to you, or you can reach out to me and I'll share those with Heather. Because I think that this actually sparks some really interesting conversations for how we navigate what's coming down the pipeline. And as you said, it's coming faster, faster than some of us might be ready for. And so, learn, absorb as much as you can about the impact that it's going to have. So I want to thank our audience for joining us. We do appreciate you very much. And we know we get listened to now in over 23 countries. And so we don't take that for granted. We know you have a choice. And so we're super grateful that you pick Women in Leadership Talk to listen to your podcast. And if you're curious about your own leadership style, we do offer a leadership quiz that helps you understand how you're showing up in the world as a leader. And you can take that on our WIL Empowered, and that's 1L, WILEMPOWERED.com. You can go on our website and let us know what your leadership style says about you. So thank you again for joining us and wishing everyone a great day. And we'll see you on our next podcast. Take care, everyone. Bye for now.